Papers? Looking like that? You sure you didn't steal this car? He wasn't asking to verify. He was saying it to humiliate. On an empty stretch of highway, the only light came from a flickering street lamp reflecting off a sleek federal-issued black sedan, and a black woman in a tailored suit, both hands firmly on the wheel. Serena Miles wasn't speeding. She didn't run a light. She hadn't broken any law. But she was still pulled over. And then, the officer started laughing. FBI. You? Come on. He didn't look at the badge. He looked at her face. She didn't argue. She didn't shout. She simply rolled the window down and said, calmly, "I'm Deputy Director Serena Miles. FBI." Officer Travis Doyle didn't blink. He drew his gun. Right there in the middle of the highway. No reason. With phones recording. And 2 minutes later, he was the one in handcuffs. The Arizona desert at night was quiet in a way cities would never understand. Flat highway. No billboards. No traffic. Just stars and silence, until red and blue lights tore through the dark. Serena Miles didn't flinch. The government-issued black Lincoln Cruiser glided to the side of Route 85 without resistance. She signaled like clockwork, pulled over with professional calm, and placed both hands on the steering wheel exactly where the training manual said they should go. She wasn't nervous. She was methodical. Because Serena Miles wasn't just any driver. She was the deputy director of the FBI. And the reason she wasn't afraid was because she'd spent 20 years learning exactly which rules were supposed to protect her. But that night, the rules didn't matter. Because the man stepping out of the cruiser behind her, Officer Travis Doyle, didn't see her badge. He saw her skin. He approached like he'd already made up his mind. Left hand swinging a flashlight lazily. Right hand hovering just close enough to the holster to send a message. Serena rolled the window down 3 inches. Enough to speak, not enough to reach. "Good evening, officer," she said, voice steady, neutral. No reply. Just a chewing motion. "Gum." "License and registration," Doyle said flatly, light aimed right at her eyes. Serena didn't blink. "May I ask why I've been stopped?" Doyle didn't answer. He just tilted his head and stared. She nodded once, then reached slowly, narrating every motion. "My wallet is in the glove compartment. I'm opening it now." Doyle didn't respond. But his hand dropped just a little closer to the holster. She retrieved her wallet and held out 2 items, her license and her federal badge. He didn't even look at them. Instead, he let out a small, sharp laugh. "FBI? You?" He smirked. "Sure you are. Let me guess, bought that online?" Serena's expression didn't change. She had briefed presidents. She had led raids. She had debriefed men who thought they were untouchable. She knew how to outlast humiliation. But this? This was deliberate. She didn't respond. She simply held her badge a little higher. Doyle leaned down closer to her window and said, "A suit like that? In this part of town? You're either lost, or lying." Then he drew his weapon. No warning. No escalation. No explanation. The muzzle hovered inches from her face, glinting faintly under the sodium lights. "Step out of the vehicle," he ordered. Her blood stayed cold. Her breath stayed slow. This wasn't just a traffic stop anymore. This was a controlled ambush, and she was the target. "Sir," she said carefully, "you are pointing a firearm at a senior federal official. There are dash cams recording, and step out. Now." The click of his safety disengaging cut through the silence like a thunderclap. Serena could see her reflection in the barrel. That, and the flashing red dot from a phone camera behind him. She moved. Slowly. Precisely. Opened the door. Planted her feet on the asphalt. Hands raised. Behind her, a voice rang out. "Yo! I'm filming this." Doyle froze. His head jerked toward the voice. A man, young, hoodie up, phone held high, stood on the shoulder of the road. His name was Deshaun Baker, and he had just stepped into the story at the exact right time. Doyle didn't lower the weapon. But his posture shifted. Subtly. Serena didn't miss it. She knew what was coming next, a scramble. A lie. A cover-up. He'd accuse her of reaching. Of threatening. Of non-compliance. But that was before the second twist landed, hard. 3 black SUVs, unmarked but unmistakably federal, appeared in the distance. Fast. Coordinated. Unavoidable. They boxed him in like clockwork. Doors opened. Suits stepped out. The man in front held a phone, replaying a live feed already being transmitted to FBI HQ. "Officer Doyle," the agent said calmly, "you've just pointed a loaded weapon at Deputy Director Serena Miles. You are now under federal detention. Remove your weapon. Hands behind your back." Doyle turned ghost white. "I didn't know." "You didn't ask," Serena said quietly. She turned to face him fully, her stance now composed and deliberate. "2 minutes ago, you laughed at my badge. Now you're about to learn what it actually means." He didn't resist. He couldn't. Because the system that let him act with impunity had just turned against him. For once, the camera didn't arrive too late. The badge wasn't dismissed. And the woman they tried to reduce to a suspect? She wrote the report. The cuffs clicked shut behind Officer Travis Doyle's wrists. But he wasn't the only one who should have been afraid. At FBI headquarters in Phoenix, 22 minutes after the incident, something quietly disappeared from the internal personnel system. Serena Miles's active duty status went from active, executive rank, to pending verification, inactive badge ID. No alert. No notification. No digital footprint, except for one misstep. An IT technician named Lena Grant, 3rd year, 2 a.m. shift, a coffee addict with a conscience, happened to be scanning back-end logs when the entry blipped across her screen. She blinked. Refreshed. Deputy Director Serena Miles, cleared, top secret, special access. Now read, unverified, flagged for review. Lena didn't waste time. She called her supervisor. He told her to stay out of it. So she called Serena directly. "Ma'am. I think someone's trying to erase you." Serena had heard a lot in her career. Threats. Bribes. Pleas. Lies. But never that. "Explain," she said. Lena spoke fast, eyes still glued to her terminal. "They didn't delete you. That would raise too many flags. They reclassified you. As inactive. Retroactively. Like you never clocked in the last 4 weeks." Serena's voice sharpened. "Who has the clearance level to do that? Maybe a director. But more likely, someone in National Security Admin's Compliance Division. They've got silent edit access across interlinked agencies." Serena closed her eyes for a beat. She knew who had that access. Clayton Voss. Her former supervisor. The man who once told her she was smart enough to run the field, but not polished enough to sit at the table. He'd been gunning for her post since the day she was promoted. And now that she'd made national headlines by exposing one of their own, he was pulling strings from the shadows. By morning, the headlines had shifted. FBI officer detained local cop after badge misunderstanding. Was there a breach in identification protocol? Sources say deputy director's record under internal review. It was the same playbook. When you can't discredit someone publicly, you erase them internally. And if the system forgets your credentials, your authority vanishes with it. That's how careers die quietly. Serena knew this wasn't just about her. This was about precedent. Because if they could do this to the deputy director of the FBI, they could do it to anyone. Inside the Bureau's legal division, Serena sat across from 2 internal affairs agents and 1 external liaison from D.C. None of them looked comfortable. Agent Miles, the man in the gray suit, began. There appears to be an inconsistency in your clearance timestamp. Serena folded her hands. That inconsistency was manufactured. Intentionally. The woman to his left cleared her throat. Be that as it may, protocol requires we suspend all operational authority until... Serena cut in. Until the system that made me vanish finishes reviewing the records it rewrote? The room went quiet. I'm not here to ask for my seat back, she said. I'm here to demand access to the audit logs. And I want a federal observer assigned. Immediately. The liaison leaned back. Do you have reason to believe there was internal sabotage? Serena met his gaze without blinking. I have more than reason. I have a motive, a suspect, and a timeline. The only thing I don't have is the clearance someone stole from me. Outside the room, the surveillance feed recorded every word. And in a quiet office 2 floors above, Clayton Voss watched in silence. He clicked pause. Zoomed in on Serena's face. And whispered. You should have stayed quiet. But he underestimated the one thing no record tampering could erase. Serena's ability to fight back. Because she didn't climb the ranks by pleasing men like him. She climbed by outlasting them. And now, she wasn't just reclaiming her position. She was coming for the entire system that let this happen. In the FBI's Integrated Systems Archive, buried beneath 3 floors of biometric locked glass and reinforced servers, badge numbers were everything. They were digital DNA. They couldn't lie, couldn't be duplicated, couldn't be reassigned. Unless someone tried to bury them. Serena Miles's badge number, A775-019, had appeared 3,427 times in agency databases across 17 years. Briefings. Arrest warrants. Surveillance authorizations. Field debriefs. And now, it showed up, 0 times in the current clearance system. Officially, she didn't exist. But in the one place that mattered, the audit core, her number refused to vanish. Because someone had missed a line of code. It's a forensic echo, Lena Grant explained, scanning through server logs. They rerouted your live access, but the shadow logs? They never deleted the pings. Every move you made is still here. Just, marked under a false ID tag. Whose ID? Serena asked. Lena hesitated. Then turned the screen. The ID belonged to Clayton Voss. More specifically, to one of his ghost accounts. See Voss_Mirror2 had been piggybacking off her credentials for nearly 2 months. Using her clearance to authorize internal transfers, dig into sealed surveillance footage, and, most damning of all, approve suppression of a prior incident involving Officer Travis Doyle. Serena stared at the screen. This wasn't just an attack on me, she said quietly. It was cover for what Doyle did before. In a sealed file folder marked D-112, they found it. Use of excessive force, traffic stop, Tucson, March 3rd. The victim was 17. Male. Unarmed. Stopped for a busted tail light. Hospitalized. Internal bleeding. No body cam footage released. The officer's name, T. Doyle. The case, closed due to non-compliance and lack of credible testimony. Serena's jaw clenched. Because the file had been flagged for reclassification just 3 days before her own status was wiped. Voss buried it, Lena said, then tried to wipe you when you got too close. Serena didn't reply. She was already on her feet. She walked straight into the Washington, D.C. bureau, unannounced. Security didn't stop her, they recognized her face. Her voice. Her posture. It wasn't until she reached the 7th floor that someone finally stepped in front of her. A low-level assistant, sweating. I am sorry, Director Miles. You're not cleared to access this floor. She smiled faintly. That's funny. Because my badge just logged in. She held up a tablet. On the screen was her full operational footprint, retrieved from audit logs. Signed. Time-stamped. Duplicated 3,427 times. It was more than proof. It was a weapon. Behind the assistant, a door opened. Clayton Voss stepped out. Still in his pristine 3-piece suit. Still calm. Still powerful. Or so he thought. He raised a brow. Serena. I thought you were on temporary leave. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't flinch. She handed him the tablet. Read it. Voss scanned it. His face didn't move, but his knuckles whitened on the edge of the screen. You made yourself invisible, she said coldly. But you forgot something. What's that? She stepped closer. Badge numbers don't lie. People like you do. That night, the audit report went live. Anonymous upload. Encrypted signature. Every log. Every ghost login. Every buried file. It flooded the Justice Department's inboxes, reached the House Oversight Committee, and pinged media watchdogs across the country. They couldn't spin it. They couldn't ignore it. And they couldn't stop what Serena was about to do next. Turn the spotlight toward everyone who helped make her disappear. Because erasing a badge number is one thing. But erasing a woman like Serena Miles? Impossible. The Justice Department didn't blink. Not at first. The report landed in their inboxes like a bomb. Time-stamped logins, buried use of force complaints, a silent overwrite of Serena Miles's identity, all attached with digital signatures too clear to deny. But for 48 hours, they said nothing. No press conference. No email. No apology. Because the worst kind of corruption isn't the kind that roars. It's the kind that waits. Hoping the news cycle moves on. Hoping the woman they erased just goes quiet again. But Serena Miles didn't wait. She walked straight into their silence with a microphone. The press conference wasn't hosted by the Bureau. It was hosted by the Public Accountability Alliance, a non-governmental watchdog group known for live-streaming whistleblowers on Capitol steps. The backdrop wasn't a flag. It was Serena's badge. Projected 5 feet tall behind her. 2 months ago, my record was marked for deletion, she began. Not because I broke the law, but because I enforced it against someone the system didn't want held accountable. Her voice didn't shake. It sharpened. This wasn't a clerical error. This was a decision. She let the pause stretch. Let me be very clear, I have served this country across 2 administrations, in 7 foreign operations, and under oath for over 6,000 days. And the second I challenged a bad cop and a worse cover-up, the department tried to erase me. Camera shutters snapped. Live streams pinged with viewers. But Serena didn't blink. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because systems that protect cowards don't deserve silence. And because power that isn't challenged, always learns to look away. She held up a flash drive, the full audit. I'm turning this over to Congress. Not because I trust them. But because now, you will be watching. Back in D.C., at the Office of Inspector General, senior officials scrambled. Clayton Voss had been placed on administrative reassignment. His name was now attached to 5 open investigations. But Serena knew the game. Sacrificing one man wouldn't fix the rot. Not when half the people investigating him had approved the cover-up in the first place. She wanted more than his resignation. She wanted sunlight. 1 week later, the Oversight Committee began live hearings. Serena was the first to testify. Across from her sat 3 senior officials who had previously denied her meeting requests. Now, they were forced to read her record out loud. Line by line. Every commendation. Every deployment. Every buried complaint she'd signed off on, until they tried to delete her. And then came the question from Senator Harding. Ms. Miles, do you believe this was racism? She looked at him. Not with anger. Not even with pain. With precision. I believe, she said slowly, that if I had looked like you, no one would have touched my file. Silence. And then a murmur across the chamber. No one expected her to say it out loud. But she didn't come to stay comfortable. She came to make them see. Meanwhile, a Freedom of Information request triggered by the leak uncovered dozens of other, quiet edits, in the system. Agents whose records had been temporarily suspended, under review, or pending investigation, all without formal charges. 90% of them? People of color. This wasn't an exception. This was a blueprint. And Serena had just ripped the mask off of it. Back at Bureau HQ, a plaque hung just inside the personnel records room. It had always read, "Integrity is doing the right thing when no one is watching." That week, someone, no one knew who, slipped a sticky note under the frame. It read, "Then stop closing your eyes." The hearing room was at capacity. Not because it had to be, but because people needed to be there. They stood in the aisles, leaned against marble columns, and watched from overflow monitors outside the chamber doors. Some held signs. Others just stood silently, arms folded, waiting to witness the one thing the Bureau hadn't anticipated. Accountability. Spoken aloud. With cameras rolling. Serena Miles adjusted the microphone. She wasn't in uniform. No suit. No badge. Just a simple black dress and the same calm fire she carried through every moment of the storm. "I was told to be quiet," she began. "That making this public would erode public trust, damage careers, and stain the agency I swore to serve." She looked up, sweeping the room with her gaze. But trust isn't damaged by truth. It's damaged by the people who hide it. A few heads nodded. One senator scribbled notes with shaking hands. "I was nearly erased. Not because I broke protocol, but because I followed it, when it led somewhere inconvenient." She raised her hand, holding up a small, black leather case. "My badge. Reinstated. Not thanks to internal review, but thanks to the public eye." She placed it on the desk. Deliberately. As if restoring a piece of herself the system tried to steal. And I'm not the only one. Over 50 agents. All flagged. All buried. All removed from the record when they refused to look the other way. A large screen behind her flickered. A list appeared. Badge numbers. No names. Just the trail the system thought it had hidden. She stepped back. "This is not about me anymore," she said. "This is about the record. The one they'll never be allowed to edit again." By that evening, Serena's full testimony was clipped, shared, and translated into 19 languages. The hashtag trended globally. Hashtag not just a system glitch. Hashtag Miles did not disappear. And the department, backed into the corner, had no choice but to respond. Scroll new policy mandates were passed. Every badge edit required biometric authentication. All record suspensions must notify the agent within 6 hours. An independent civilian audit board was created, with Serena Miles on it. Not as a consultant. As the chairwoman. In the weeks that followed, Serena declined every media offer. 60 Minutes. The View. Even Netflix called. She didn't want a spotlight. She wanted structure. So instead of a memoir, she published a single-page public statement, archived on every federal employment system's login screen. It read, "This system once made me disappear. Now I'm part of the code that prevents it from ever happening again." Serena Miles. Deputy Director, Federal Bureau of Investigation. At FBI Quantico, a new training module was added to the Academy orientation. Required reading. Mandatory test. The module's name? Badge A775-019, How Records Tried to Forget Her. And in the final slide, before recruits log out, there's one line. Real justice isn't written by power. It's written by those who survived it.